This is a 5-minute time-lapse video of a portrait session done in my studio, which took about 4 hours. This is the Alla prima painting technique, which means to complete the painting in one session. And I begin every paint session with toning the canvas and then completing a contour line drawing that you can see here, just using a thin liner brush. And I tend to paint in the darkest darks first and then followed by the background, or sometimes the background first and then the darkest darks. So she had some red in her clothing, so it just made sense since I had red on my brush from the background to get those areas painted in with the same color. And I often paint the clothing first before I paint the face. I tend to paint the face last for a couple of reasons. Part of it, I think, is just psychological, because by the time I get to the end of the painting and everything is filled in, at that point I know I can't mess up the face. I just have to make sure that I get it. But also it makes sense for me to paint the background and the clothing and everything around the skin so that I can make better decisions on the skin tone as far as the values and the colors. So you can see here I'm painting her hair, which was a lot of fun. She was wearing a blonde wig, and I could really see the warmth from the red background reflecting into the shadow side of the hair. So that was a lot of fun to paint. And you'll see at the end of the time-lapse video how I kind of go in and refine the hair a bit more. So right now it looks like I'm painting the shadow side under her chin, and then working into the lighter side, some of the reflected light on her neck, the darkest darks now under her nose and into her face on the shadow side. So now that I have some of the skin and some of her outfit painted, I can now make better decisions with my color choices and value choices now that I'm painting her face. So I'm starting to flesh out the middle values and a little bit on the light side as well. I tend to just bounce around at this point, but I do find that if I get out of a certain kind of paint flow, that I do get a bit overwhelmed. So I try to stick to, like, darkest darks, middle values, lightest values after that. But at some point you do kind of bounce around and you end up working on all of those areas at once. It's always fun for me when I have friends or models and they come and sit for me, where it becomes a collaborative effort. So sometimes I'll ask, in this case, Ellen, to come and sit for me. Maybe I have an idea of what I want her to wear, and other times, she or whoever will show up with different options. And I always enjoy that they try to challenge me every time. So she's got this tulle skirt on that we poofed up, that's always fun. And, the silky gloves, a hint of that, and the wig, of course. And eventually we'll get to the pearls. So these Alla prima sessions are really awesome as far as being able to practice drawing and painting different objects and different materials, because light hits all of those objects and materials differently. So you learn how to paint them or draw from them from doing it from life. So I highly encourage every artist to practice drawing from life. It's been a huge part of my practice. I still, as you can see, I still practice from life even to this day. And, it's something that I instill in my students as well. So you can paint or draw from still life, paint or draw from people, objects, go outside, paint a landscape, and just try to improve your skills. You'll find that the more that you practice painting and drawing from life, that you start to see things differently. And I know for me, being a painter, every day I'm observing color and textures, and I'll be talking to my boyfriend or a friend, and I'll notice, something on their skin, like transillumination, their ears, turn bright red, or I'll just notice, certain color combinations. And then I get excited to try to replicate those observations that I see in my everyday life. I try to replicate those in those Alla primas, or more of a long-term fine art painting that takes maybe days or weeks to develop, which are much different than these Alla primas. But I try to take the knowledge that I gain from these paintings and then implement them in other paintings as well. So at this point, I'm coming down to the end of the painting, and I'm just bouncing around, last minute touches, and of course I needed to paint the pearls. So one of the things that I love about painting pearls is the challenge of trying to simplify them. So if you look at a bunch of the old master paintings, especially Sargent's, oftentimes the pearls blend into the skin tone. So I try my best to just simplify them and not overwork them. And you can see here, just popping the highlights on the ones in her hair, and that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching.